covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Mernier.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Inside the Walls podcast, Wednesday Rewind edition. Actually on a Wednesday this time. Sorry about last week, but now we are. Of course, I'm Jim Mernier. Alongside me, 900 miles to the north, Zach Kyleman.
Yeah, back on Wednesdays, like we put in the post, you can't control the weather, as we know. Or at least it's pretty hard to do so in all regard. But hey, back on the normal schedule. Good to have it. Glad we're getting to talk about it this week.
It's nice. I want to say to the fans out there that have listened to us and sent message to us, yes, I know you love hearing Southerners complain about the weather. Yes, I know. But we do love it down here during the wintertime when you guys are snowed in. So touche. but anyways,
don't
remember.
Don't remind me.
Hey,
man.
That's right. You're an Indian. You get snowed in.
Good enough.
We may get some salt sprayed and like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's just, humidity that turns into salt. That's not, it's not snow.
Mom, what's that? It's frozen water. I'm scared.
Dude, they shut down the city. They shut down any Florida city if we get a dusting of snow. That's how bad.
So I've seen.
Yeah. When I was in college at Florida State, we had like a little dust of snow that came by. City was shut down for a day. I'm like, okay. I can literally walk across this and it's melting as we speak because it's still warm on the ground. But anyways, don't matter about Southerners complaining about snow.
Anyways.
We are Inside the Walls podcast, the official podcast of the National Marine League, and you can find us in multiple locations. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are our main ones, and a little bit of TikTok. Still trying to know how to launch that, probably here in the near future. Maybe not. But anyways, you can follow us at InWallsPod. Simple, or go to the nationalarenaleague.com/videos to find us there. Also, like, subscribe. It builds morale on our YouTube page. When we get to 100 subscribers, I think we're like 14 away. 2 tickets to any NL game of your choosing. It might be a playoff game. See how close we're getting, but still 2 tickets we will give to you, whoever wins. Remember, like, subscribe, click the bell, because you will be notified via that way of who wins the ticket. So let's recap last week, week 9 of the National Arena League. Nothing big happened. No big.
No.
The commissioner didn't say anything. Every game was run. Everything was clean. It was a nice, pristine operation. Like, no one says that in any football game in any league at any time. Week 9 was chaotic. I know earlier last week I said I need chaos the second half of the season. I didn't need to happen in the same game, in the same day, in the same week.
Pull it back a little. Hang on now.
I'm like, whoa. Can we slow down here? Don't need it all happen at the same time.
As someone knows from a title of a said podcast, you still have to control the chaos just a little bit. That's a callback, if anything.
Yeah. it took me a second. I'm like, wait. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's talking about my other podcast, Controlling Chaos. I need to get back on that, but it's been, hectic on my side. But anyways, news dropped today by the commissioner of the league. He made a statement about what happened in the San Antonio and Orlando game. And Zach has a few quotes he wants to say from that statement about that. This is from the commissioner's mouth. So why not? Let's don't elaborate. Just say what he says so everyone knows what we're about to report, what we're going to talk about in our first matchup that happened in Orlando.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to do this, but the ending of the contest between San Antonio and the Predators had much to discuss on the final, really 24 seconds on the game clock, or roughly 10 minutes elapsing at the end of the game. For those that were watching, I'm just going to put this in my own terms. Picture this: San Antonio has the ball. It's basically the final drive that's going to make or break who wins this contest. They're at about the 2-yard line. Pierre Turner gets the ball, runs up to the left side, falls just a half yard short of the goal line. One referee signals a touchdown, the other does not. They confer in the middle of the goal line, essentially at the front of the end zone. Time's elapsing. Clock ends. Predators think they've won. Announcers think they've won. PA announcers think they've won. And we get essentially a stoppage for review. Everything is kind of feeling like it's up in the air. We come back. Apparently, it's only been 4 seconds that are left on the clock, and that after stoppages, after kind of looking back at the replay, they set 4 seconds down. Robert Kent then gets one last play, runs to the left for a half-yard touchdown. Everyone goes home, and a lot of questions online have ensued ever since then, or arguments about how that contest went. I'm just going to read off kind of a paragraph today off, as Jim said, the official statement from Commissioner Siegfried. If you want to go through the whole release, which we'll cover as much as we can on this, I'm not going to read through the whole thing because it is very lengthy, but I will read through the key parts of it. I recommend you go back. First things first, to kind of add some context to this whole situation, official Andrew McGrath, he suffered a broken clavicle from that hit he took in the second quarter. It was pretty bad. They didn't really show it on replay again, but if you were watching it and if you go back online onto the YouTube replay, he gets running full speed ahead and takes it hard to the turf. Again, this turf isn't like field. This isn't like field NFL turf. It's better than it used to be back in the day, but it's still thin carpet on concrete. So if you fall any way wrong, or if you bash your head or you land the wrong way, it's going to hurt badly. He had to go to the hospital. And as Commissioner Siegfried actually says in this, he had to get some stitches for a laceration too. With that, he is going to make a full recovery. The main thing you want to take away from this is how the interpretation was taken with the ruling. So I'm going to read this quoted paragraph. Quote, with respect to the call and ruling in question, that is in terms of San Antonio versus Orlando, to add context, there were 24 seconds left in the fourth quarter. The San Antonio ball carrier ran to the ball very close to the end zone. One official signaled TD. The other official ruled him down short of the goal line. The officials convened on the field of play to discuss the situation. However, the game clock inadvertently continued to run until time was out. The lead official decided to review the play after said time. This is my adding on after said time ran out. I'm adding that as an extension to that. After review, it was determined that the runner was down short of the goal line. The game clock was reset to 4 seconds to reflect where the game clock should have been at a previous play. And here's where the ruling comes in for this paragraph. Per league rules, this time includes a 10-second runoff since the ball was never spotted after the previous play, which is true. Most of it was the referee actually had the ball in his hand. And they were convening at the goal line during this time. The clock started. San Antonio snapped the ball, ran one more play. The Gunslinger scored as the clock ran out. So essentially, it all comes back to, as they're convening, the clock there was no stoppage. They never stopped to convene. So the clock ran out. They had to then go back into reviewing on the video monitors where exactly the clock was when they started the conversation. Because if that's the case, that's when the 10-second runoff comes in. You then have to calculate it from there. In the game, they said it was 12 seconds that then converted to 4, which didn't help the ruling explanation. This one makes more sense in terms of the mathematics in the statement, because originally it was set on field as 12 seconds by the head official, and then they converted to 4 seconds, which is 8, which that's not really, I've never heard of an unround or an unrounded number like not in an interval of 5 being used. So it got into that. Nonetheless, the terminology is mixed up. It sounds like the fifth official not being there also made it tougher on the second half for this crew as well. And part of this release as well is how they're going to address what happens if a crew member goes down. They're going to go to the drawing board with at least supervisor officials Joe Clarkson for the league. They're going to start evaluating how to do that. A lot of announcements is saying this is how it should have been. We're working on changes that need to be made for the NAL. And I think this is going to be the start to something that I really think it's a step the league needs to take at some point. And maybe it's Iron Man. Maybe it's the fact that, I don't know, it's just we're getting more and more, I guess, grounded teams here, and we're going to hope we see growth with the NAL. And that way they want to get into a more, I guess, more of a growth and expansion of their brand as well as who they are in terms of the arena space. But officiating, I could say what I want myself. It is definitely a hard subject to grasp, but it's becoming more and more prevalent that it is making it's at least many in the fan base very disgruntled, I think, this year. I can't say it was like that fully last year. There were moments every year there is with officials. You're just no one's perfect, but it feels like this year there's been recently, especially, just some calls or some ways that these games have been run that I think you really maybe next year just got to go to the drawing board in the offseason. Go, what can we do? Maybe Mr. Clarkson and company can go to the board and go, what can we do to possibly solve this, or at least mitigate what is seeming to be kind of a talked about discussion point, and even more so than usually are with officials. That's what I'm saying. It's not that officials are never a talking point. It's just that it seems like it's getting talked almost too much right now, and it's becoming almost distracting to what the product is and what it can be even more so to the outside fan. And I mean, not even just this game. One thing that got undercut, and Jim, I'll let you talk about this. I mean, felt like, the Sharks Columbus game was defensive, but there was unfortunately a very unfriendly broadcast and experience moment in Columbus that happened, that it was part of officiating, part how the game was handled. It didn't go well there, and it was actually kind of got underswept in the public eye just because of what happened in Orlando on that same night.
Yeah, every Jacksonville fan knows what I'm about to talk about. Every Columbus fan will kind of ignore it, like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. I have visual evidence. I have screenshots of this interaction. Later in the second quarter, right in the 1 minute warning time frame, with 22 seconds left on the clock, Jacksonville completed a pass to Naquan Murray to about the Columbus 3-yard line. And then it was 14 seconds left on the clock. Jacksonville hauled down the field like a 2-minute offense does. Columbus's defense ran down the field too, besides one guy who slowly started walking. And I paused it right then and there when the line judge had the ball. 9 seconds left. In the rules of football, in college, in the National Football League, even European, the line judge goes the speed of the game. He is not supposed to slow down the game by himself because he's too, lazy. You don't see that in the NFL. They go the pace. They put the ball down, then they wait for the main ref to, blow the whistle to continue the clock. The line judge in the Columbus game held the ball to the end of the half. Jacksonville players were furious. I know a lot of people in the Jacksonville organization that are really irritated. As a fan, I have screenshots. I posted on Twitter. The line judge is literally holding the football with 9 seconds left in the game, and the clock is just spinning. I have it at 3 seconds. He's still holding it. Then the line judge says, put the ball down, and the half is over. That was a pivotal moment in the game. We talk about it in every league. We've seen it in the National Football League in the, I think, 2018 NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Saints, where there was a clear pass interference that was not called that determined who went to the Super Bowl. The Rams went that year and got beat by the Patriots. You see that a lot in the NFL. You see crucial plays that affect the outcomes. Usually you don't see those type of plays determine the outcome early in the game. This was pivotal because Jacksonville would basically how Barber's been kicking. He would have made that field goal and Jacksonville would have been up by 1 point. Yes, not a big 1 point in a game is not a big deal. But Arvell Nelson threw a crucial interception at the end of the game in the last possession that determined the outcome of the game. He wouldn't have thrown that pass if that mess up didn't happen in the end of the first half, because Jacksonville would have had the lead. Columbus would have had to get a turnover, which they did, to come back and try to win the game. That type of plays, we've seen it this past weekend. We've seen it in Orlando with Albany and Orlando's game with the offsides, clearly offsides, that turned out to be the determined game-changing performance for Albany. They went on to blow out Orlando. We saw this in San Antonio 2 weeks ago. We saw it in Columbus a couple weeks ago with Albany too. There's key. It's not that these refs and how the league has presented it, about 85% of the time, the refs are not the issue. They're not. It's all, well, that's clear holding. That's a clear, common penalties. But that percentage is getting bigger by the week as they are determining games. And when referees determine a game, in my opinion, or determine how the pace of play is supposed to go, then they're not a referee for the arena game. Why are our games going 4 hours long and 3.5 hours? It's because the refs are walking down the field during 1-minute drills when a team is trying to hurry up, spike the ball, and get their kicker out, and you're there holding the football for 9 seconds, acting like you've never been to an arena football game in your life. Those are the plays that are crucial. Orlando happened in the Albany game. It happened this week against San Antonio. It happened in San Antonio a couple weeks ago. We have seen evidence around that league. And for me, who's tried not to talk about the subject, saw it happen to my team. And for Columbus fans, they saw it happen to their team a few weeks ago when they played in Jacksonville. You can say what the league does and how they approach it. It's just that us arena fans are getting tired of watching our game that we love get taken away by bad refereeing. And some of them is like crucial. I've seen jack linebackers completely out of the box 15 yards downfield not get called. I see MAC linebackers blitzing before the ball's even snapped, not get called. I've seen phantom pass interference flags on receivers or DBs who are not even on the field get called. It happened at Jacksonville against Albany. Dangerfield got called for pass interference when he played for Albany. He wasn't even in the game. He was in the sideline in Albany. That continued Jacksonville's drives. There's little things that don't bug you, but when you have big plays like the offsides in Albany, like this play in the second half of Jacksonville, and what happened to San Antonio this week, these are the things that get fans irritated and get new coming fans and be like, that we can't buy into this product if it's going to be like this. Am I mad that Jacksonville lost to Columbus? No, Jacksonville fought their butts off for the second half of the game for a reason that it's a rivalry, but they were playing with a disadvantage because they got a possession stolen from them by the refs. And I know there's a lot of Shark fans that feel like that. For me, I'm trying to be as level-headed as possible. There's 9 seconds ran off the clock with the ref just holding the football while Arvell Nelson's cussing at the ref and said, "Put the ball down." Like, you're going in 1 minute offense. You don't hold the football, ref. Put the ball down. Right. It's not about you. It's about let Jacksonville make a play to mess up. Don't stall it. It really irritated me. And Columbus, of course, it's not against what Columbus did. They beat up Jacksonville. It was a good game. It came down to the very end. Jacksonville battled back, took the lead, and it was a good game. It was just that play right there was a significant moment in the game that determined the outcome, even though it kind of corrected itself in the second half. But Arvell's interception in the game may have not been an interception if Jacksonville got that, ball placed, snap, field goal in, and they would have led at halftime. It's small things, but the accumulation of the bad calls, accumulation of the rulings on the field, and that's what's making these 2.5-hour games 4 hours long. San Antonio's game is almost a 4-hour game for an arena football game. It's just, for me as a fan, I love this. I love the arena game. It's just becoming so aggravating in a lot of these games, even games that I'm not, I don't have a team to fight. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's bad. That tournament, Orlando has a gripe. San Antonio has a gripe. Every team in the league at one point has a gripe. Like now we're not reviewing fan interference, but we did clearly review it in week 1. It's just we're the podcast of the league, and as fans, I think we have to say that we need to start seeing something about the rule book so we can all understand the rules of the game. Well, and once we know the rules of the game, I think everyone will finally figure out, okay, that's the reason why they call this. That's why it's like this. It's just a lot. It's like each week, it's the narrative switches based on, like, are we doing a running clock? Are we reviewing pass interferences now, or a fan catch interference? What's the deal? And for me and you, it's very aggravating. And I really want to, tell me what we got to expect with a paper document or on the website. And I guarantee this will solve a lot of the issues between the fan base and us right now. And we're just fans just expressing what the fans feel right now to the league. And you don't have a dog in a fight. You don't have a team. You're an indie, but still you're feeling this frustration like I am this week. Like, that is the thing in San Antonio got me, like, I'm watching the game. I'm like, what's going on here? In a Jacksonville game, I was furious because, of course, I was red and black. I'm a Sharks fan. But it's just when we know people around the league and they're all saying the same narratives, it just, the frustration just gets to me. And I guarantee it gets to you too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I stressed a lot of that last week, and I think it's a little, I guess now, unfortunately, it's easier this week to do so. Sadly, the way I take this statement too, and just based on the fact, from what you read with Commissioner Siegfried, I mean, I read off, what the sequences were with the play in question for there. Something that did come away with this though that had been noticed is I'll say it, quote, however, we've discovered inconsistencies with the mechanics of review process. I have determined based on the current league protocols with respect to all teams and markets, this needs to be addressed immediately. So I don't think they know what's going on. Commissioner Siegfried knows, league officials know, you have said it. People know, I wonder, to me, what's the best way to go forward with that? Because I'll say this too. You're right. I don't have a dog in the fight in terms of team. Yeah, I'm wearing this. People can tell I'm wearing this Cobra shirt. If you've been seeing the Cobra pop over the screen,
That's because you lost a bet.
Just add a little. I mean, I did, but like, it's this nice blackout shirt. So thanks, Rob Storm. But nonetheless, I really don't have a dog. Like, you're right. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have a true fandom. I'm a fan of the league right now. I'm trying to see what's best. I come from a point of what's best to have the league itself grow. And I do think, just talking with folks outside of the show, the Discord's helped a lot. The NAL group has helped a lot. The Discord references ours, by the way. You can join that. And it just comes down to a lot of, I think fans want to see a little more openness on some of the stuff, like how the process is. Like you're talking the rule book. Like I'm a big proponent of let fans understand the game more. And we were trying to do that with the NAL series. I mean, you guys remember our interview with Commissioner Siegfried. Chris has said that he wants people to understand the game, and I think the league does that. It's just, I also am here and I think we're trying to find, as fans and as the league, a happy medium. How can we get what we want where they also get what they want? I hate critiquing the league in this way. I really do. I feel it's a necessary evil, sadly, because this week it looked bad. Yeah, I hate saying it, but it looked bad, and they know it. And I hope that moving forward, it's addressed. That's all I can tell you. They have a part of the season. They have an off season coming up, and owners meetings are generally when this stuff gets brought up anyway. And I mean, if you're talking in the statement, you're talking, they're addressing what the teams want to do. And if teams are discussing with each other, it's going to come up. I want to know what the best way forward is too, because officials, I mean, they have a hard job as well. I mean, like
of course,
said, like we talked with Andrew McGrath here, who's mentioned in the statement. I mean, dude broke his clavicle. But I mean, also that arena, it is a unique version of football. It takes, you can know the basics of football, but you need to have refs that are able to give an expert a niche sport. And that's hard. I mean, that I applaud them, but man, I almost feel like the league's got to find some way forward to maybe, I don't know if it's the education of it for officiating or ways of doing it. I know the NAL's it's really only in year 5 of its existence. So you still can say early, but I feel like this, at some point, they're going to have to talk about it through the year. And it's going to have to be, to me, it has to be an off-season thing where I think you really take a deep dive this time. You really say, what can we do? It's just, that's all I can put. I hate going farther with this conversation. It's just, unfortunately, it's 2 weeks in a row that it's been stuff has come up like this.
It's an issue that, like, for me and you, it's very hard for us to just come out and critique it. But I think, honestly, if it's not presented up front for the league to, okay, these guys, we know these guys are passionate about our league. They know the fans. They know how the fans are reacting. It's just, for us, I think if we didn't care about this league, we will ignore this situation. Like, oh, what was this? But when the commissioner makes a statement about it, that just tells you that there is an issue about it. And the league itself is still working. These guys are not NFL refs, like you mentioned.
Yep.
And I think over time, you get more people into the game. My stance is like sometimes I see some of these refs, they're too busy looking around to see who has the answer or actually knowing the rules, while we have hundreds of fans in these stadiums that know the rules and they're screaming the rules, and the refs clearly don't understand. But I believe that should more on training, more on understanding the game, the arena game, because a lot of these refs they get have experience in the outdoor game. The rules are similar, but they're not, every rule's not the same. So it's an adjustment period. Like refs got to go through adjustment period. And we've seen it like when it started the season. They started and it was like, God, this is terrible. They adjusted and actually got better as for a couple of weeks, and you get the hiccups of the bad call here, bad call here. Then what happened this weekend? It happens. You're going to have that in any league, just not in the NAL. You see it all the time in the National Football. And in the National Football League, it's in crucial games like NFC, AFC Championship game, and sometimes the Super Bowl. So it's the human factor of the game. I just want to say to Chris Siegfried, to the owners, and to the fans of the NAL, if you show the league passion about this, they are listening and they're trying to get this right. We're just critiquing because we know your anger and we're feeling the same way. So why not bring it up to get on this show to know that, hey, we know there's an issue. We know that you're working on it, but here's what the fans are thinking. And this is basically from the chat that we've been having with a lot of fans. This is basically of Twitter and the motion that we saw on the chat boards during the games. We're relaying it. So for a lot of our listeners, are you guys going to talk about this? We know that you're part of the league. Are you going to talk about it? It's an issue. We have to mention it. You're not going to avoid it because, all sunshine and rainbows. No, it was a key situation and a key factor. And one team's fan base thinks they got screwed. Both sides of the ball, either in Jacksonville or in Columbus or in Orlando this past weekend. And sometimes do we like talking about it? No. But it does come up, and it's became an issue, and it came to its climax in Orlando. Orlando situation really overshadowed what happened in Columbus. But overall, it's an issue. I don't want to beat the dead. What's it saying? Beat the drum dead or whatever.
You don't want to beat a dead horse. You don't want.
There we go. Where I get the dumb dread from, really.
Basically, you can only say so much.
I think that's so much.
And really, that's as far as we can go.
But let's talk about the games this past weekend.
And actually, it's funny. I want to talk about the Gunslingers and Predators game for a different reason. Because I know that sure, you think of that one this past week. You think of it a little more about the end of it, but I'll be honest with you. Preds fans, if you're listening in, I'm sorry. You guys let this one slip away. That the fumble in the third quarter, right on the goal line, could have put you up by 20 points. That was the start of what was a collapse. And I know that the timing and everything, the way that was officiated. Honestly, even you look at the ruling, like I said, it kind of slipped out from you. This is it's kind of become inconsistencies during the course of 60 minutes. They're starting to become a pattern with Jeff Higgins' squad. I'm like, man, you have it all together. It's just there's like lulls every like at least a quarter or so every game now. That it's like elements of your roster just, or at least of what has been working, just disappear, or mistakes all of a sudden happen. I can target, of course, Cato throwing to Clarence Williams for an interception. That fumble recovery, obviously a key fourth down stop late in the fourth quarter that gave San Antonio a lead to go up 49-44. It was once close to a 20-point lead mid third quarter. I thought we were not going to be talking about the situation. I remember flipping between the two games on Friday night going, all right, this one might be in the books. And then I came back as they're doing that review. And I went, how did we get here in the first place? So a lot to discuss. Jeff, Coach Higgins there. That's the thing, is how do you find 60 minutes of finding that top level that Orlando is very much capable of hitting at on full cylinders? I find the answers harder and harder as the years go on. Kudos to the Gunslingers, though, sticking to it, grinding it out, playing all four quarters. Fred Shaw was animated as the most I've ever seen in this game, as in anyone I've seen all year. All game. He was like everywhere. Dude was all over the field, all up and getting ready to get his guys pumped up. They stuck it out.
Yeah. But you,
2 straight wins.
uh, yeah, you can point at it and say now how Orlando was giving this game up. You can say it's almost like deja vu from the previous week from Jacksonville. Jacksonville had a big lead on Orlando. Orlando started coming back on them, and Jacksonville fans and everyone else was saying, "Oh, it's because Jacksonville wasn't doing this." Never gave credit where credit's due. They gave credit to the San Antonio Gunslingers. This week, deja vu again for Orlando, but this time they were up. And give credit to Robert Kent. Give credit to the San Antonio Gunslingers. There's some couple plays in that game that I'm like, yeah, okay. The San Antonio's found something. This is their second win of the season. They have looked very well the last couple of weeks. They're finally putting something together. Their schedule gets really tough here in the later half of the season. But going into Orlando, getting one of the 3 matchups against Orlando, and also how everything collaborated this weekend, you're only a game out of the playoffs. So the muck is really thick right now. That's what I love. That's our little terminology here.
Oh, yeah.
But also, in the Orlando game, we had a very famous sighting by one of our own here on the Inside the Walls. A very funny comment that I kind of bashed him about. He was wide open. It's the new a new T-shirt. It's like he was wide open. I'm like, wide open question mark. So prepare for it. This is wipe open T-shirts.
Wait, that's why you asked that? Is that why you said it? I thought it was because. Okay, if it was a typo, that makes more sense. I was like, well, he was wide open. What do you? That's what
you put a wipe, man. It's like he was wipe open. I'm like,
that had to be auto corrected or something, right? I mistyped. I was like, what is he talking about?
I have a screenshot. I can send it back to you.
No, you're probably right. I'm just like, what?
It was just funny. I'm like, oh, there's Zach. He's wipe open. What? Are we doing a bounty commercial all of a sudden? No, not sponsor.
No.
But you gotta give. I look at Shaw earlier this season. This team has just been, they were sluggish. They were not making key plays. They got down big to Orlando, didn't give up. They came back, and of course, what the outcome happened, they did win, but they got the win. For the fans of San Antonio, that's 2 in a row. Now you come home against the Carolina Panthers this week, or Carolina Cobras. If it was Carolina Panthers, it would be a different story. It's like, wow, they're starting their training camp pretty early. But they're going to take on the Carolina Cobras in the Freeman Coliseum this weekend. But if you look at this past game, the weapons of San Antonio just kept doing it, and they finally got their first deuce as a franchise. Or especially NAL franchise. I don't know if they had deuce in the other league or not, but in the NAL, they did get a deuce. But I like the character of the team in the second half. They really played. You can say they brought that mentality against the Albany game to Orlando, and it just felt like Cato and Orlando couldn't get anything going. Bad plays, key turnovers. And one thing I noticed in the second half, it was sloppy on both sides of the ball. Like false starts, holdings on both sides of the ball. But San Antonio find a way, got a crucial stop towards the end of the game, got the ball back, and of course, history is history, and we're not going to talk about Fiasco again, but give credit to San Antonio. San Antonio fans, you're going to be shocked about my power ranking this weekend. Zach won't touch it, but I will. San Antonio has impressed me over the last 3 weeks, even though they lost close to Jacksonville 2 weeks ago. They're one of the hottest teams in the league. Them and Columbus, in my opinion, are the 2 hottest teams in the league right now, and it all falls down to John Wayne ownership group in San Antonio. It's, gotta give credit where credit's due. San Antonio's vibing right now, and I guarantee our friends over the Smoking Guns podcast are what they call it, thriving or vibing right now. What's the terminology now the kids use these days? Vibing.
Vibing's the one I'm used to.
So
that's mine.
So I think in San Antonio they're doing that. Yes, it's a good win for San Antonio. They're 1 game now back out of the playoffs. Yes, tough schedule. You got Albany twice. You got Carolina. You got Columbus. You got them. Honestly, how Albany's playing, you might get another one against them. But you're 1 game out. A lot of things can happen. A lot of stuff, shakeups can happen above you. So whoever thought when you started 0-5, you think, oh, we're out of the playoff picture. Now you're 2-5, and you're right in the mix of things. It's going to be crucial. We got some games this weekend that are crucial, especially one at Jacksonville that we got to hit on Friday. But overall, for San Antonio, keep doing what you're doing. You're not the worst ever NAL team to ever play. You got 2 wins. You're better than the Corporate Crispy Rampage and those teams. So that's a good thing. It's a good positive vibe.
Pulling it back there.
Yeah. So better than Flight. so far. That would actually be no. They'll beat the Flight pretty handily, in my opinion. But overall, San Antonio, congrats. Good win, questionable win, but still, you'd rather have an ugly win than a terrible loss. And for Orlando, gave up that big lead that stings. Now you gotta go to your rival again next week.
Mm-hmm. You gotta shore some things up and find ways to get out of kind of those doldrums mid game. That's really all it's been killing Orlando in these previous two matchups between Jacksonville and San Antonio. They really, I mean, you can make an argument if they just put a full game together, they could be 500 still at the very least right now.
Crucial this weekend for them though. They got to win at least one. They got to win in Jacksonville this weekend if they have any chance of fighting off Jacksonville for the playoff spot.
Well, of course, and think about this too. I mean, the Gunslingers, now they have a second win. It's still they're still on the outside looking in, but because of how things have shaken up down really from positions 2 through 6, they're in it right now. You know, they gotta play good football to end the year. They gotta really stay the course. But
every team in the league has a path towards the playoffs. Only 5 teams have a path to elimination. Mm-hmm. So Carolina's right. Their chances of them getting in is like 99.9%. So they literally got to fall flat on their face, and everyone below them have to win out for them to even miss. But everyone still has a path to the Final Four, basically.
The comfort that the Gunslingers have now with the recent signings. I mean, Barnett's opened up what Khalil Rashad can do on the other side and vice versa. Mm-hmm. Just 2 versatile weapons. It's hard to guard two dynamic players like that. You know, that one wasn't even with the roster 5 weeks ago, and now they're able to do whatever they want in recent times. And Robert Kent getting more comfortable. I mean, that just helps it even more. And stingy defense starting to show up at times now for the Gunslingers. Mm-hmm. Something that, you know, just the beginning of the year roster, things have started to shift around. There's avenues. I mean, more tests lie ahead. Obviously, when we do final walkthrough this week, the ultimate test is going to lie ahead. A rematch, a different identity, hopefully this time around, and that one will be at home. If you know what I'm talking about, at least the Cobras will be on the road this week, unlike or this coming week, unlike last week where they did get to have Albany. 3rd time's the charm for them. Bringing out the brooms is what you said, and they did. They brought the brooms. Swept up the turf. But I'll tell you though,
I got a lot of heat from that, by the way.
But I mean, look, it came down to the wire. The same game flow happened, I think, a 3rd time to me. It really did. It really deja vu thrice. You know, Carolina gets 1 or 2 possessions. They get to kind of have a buffer the rest of the way. You know, Albany did kind of creep back. You know, they did get at least a pick from Bain once. There was another one I know fans have talked about with Trevon Shorts with the jack out of the box scenario. That one, I think that personally to me, unfortunate scenario because I thought it was very right on the fine line of what a jack out of the box is and isn't. Mm-hmm. However, I mean, Albany was still in this the entire way. And I think what was crazy is, we've kind of been talking about, it seems like the deuce ball is not a good K ball. And that was the only option that you could kick with in this one, that neither team had a K ball to go to. And I'm sitting there as the game's winding down, as TC Stevens is about to line up for kick. I'm like, man, we're going to overtime. This thing, there's no way. He's missed pretty much most of his kicks tonight except extra points. I don't see it. And he drains it down the middle. I'm like, that's what I was there to throw my hands up like, Mazel Tov. All right. I guess everyone gets one, right?
Mazel Tov. Is that translation for clutch, maybe?
Sure. I find that, I mean, that's as clutch as you can get. Like I said, something about that football, you just can't kick it the right way. We've seen it all year, but sure enough, one moment is all you need. And that one moment dashed any of Albany's hopes to get anything off of Carolina. But again, the same game flow as the past. I will say it looked like there were some improvements with the Washa and Castronova connection in this one. So positive sign a little bit going forward. Again, I want to see them diversify, not just from Darius Prince, because I know the broadcast, which by the way, the Carolina Cobras broadcast team, they are arguably one of my favorites in the league. They do a great job analyzing the game. But I will say, it's like they do talk about, it's hard to not pick Prince. I'm like, see, but that's what you got to change. It can't just be Darius Prince. There's got to be a 2 or 3. Look at San Antonio. They got a 1 and a 2 or a interversal 1A, 1B. That's what you need, especially in arena. If you want to be successful on that side of the ball, you need a 1A, 1B. Can't defend everybody. If you got a good quarterback who's MVP level like Jonathan Bain, it makes it just a tad harder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just a tad harder.
And that's who played an impressive game was Bain again. Bain's just tore up Albany this year.
Yes.
All 3 games. Like first game, he was untouchable. Second game, he made a couple of mistakes. This last game, he made a couple mistakes. But when he needed to make a throw, he had one right there. You also got to give credit. Like DJ Myers was. I could still say that he looks like he's still recovering a little bit from an injury that looks like he had, but still he was lethal. Ings is still lethal. That team of Carolina just, in my opinion, they have all the answers against Albany. It's like they're Albany's kryptonite. Like Albany can beat anyone else in the league. They just want to get to play Carolina. They have match for match. But like we stated before, like we stay in the offseason. I keep saying this, that we've said this from the beginning of the year. Carolina has the roster to win this whole thing.
They do.
And we've had people get us from other areas of the country saying, you're a 2-homer for Carolina. Well, I said 3 weeks ago they were going to bring the brooms out. 3 weeks later, they brought the brooms out. As
one of my favorite comedians said in his bits, I say nay, nay. I say that is indeed. I'm telling you, man, John Panette. Great stuff, food comedy. For some reason I just love it. Maybe it's just me, but I'm with you. I say nay. They were a good they were good, well-constructed roster preseason voting for us, and it stayed that way since. There's a reason why they're 7-2. And to even add on more context, I know we don't excuses at times, but I mean we also were informed on that broadcast too. They had 4 players out against Columbus, and 3 of their coaches were due to illness or other various issues with health. They couldn't bring them down. Now, credit, I mean, that doesn't mean that that's a definitive loss. Like Columbus's win against them was legitimate. There's nothing taken away, but you put them on all cylinders. You got a full healthy roster. I mean, DJ Myers has been battling, I believe it's a knee issue for several weeks now. Mm-hmm. I mean, now Kendrick Ings doesn't have to have himself blanketed the whole time. Now they can do what they want. Even with Lance Evans having his own on-off field as well, you can open up James Summers, Joe Powell getting more catches. I mean, again, he's been getting a lot more recently.
It just, for me, I look at it's like how did Jacksonville and Columbus find ways to beat this Carolina team? Is they have answers everywhere on that field. It's either pick your poison, who's going to beat you. In this game, unlike how Albany, of course, Albany will go to Darius Prince because he is the stud. He's number 1. And we understand that. Teams will start, finding the ways to slow down everyone else around Darius Prince and tell Darius Prince to be the guy to beat everyone else. In Carolina, you can't do that because they have plethora of weapons. And plus, Jonathan Bain, and we got a shout out on the Carolina page, by the way, or the Carolina broadcast. They said that the Inside the Walls podcast is saying that Jonathan Bain is the front runner for the MVP of the league, and I still believe that. I really do. He's every single week he has shown why he's the best quarterback in the league and why he is the MVP because he plays on the team that's currently the number 1 in the league, and so far every game he's played, he's been dominant. Yes, they have losses. A close loss to Jacksonville. That was a traditional arena football game, back and forth. And the game against Columbus was really sluggish, and Columbus found something a couple of weeks ago. But in this game right here, like I mentioned, it feels like Carolina is Albany's kryptonite. And I know a lot of Albany fans on the chat boards and on the fan pages are saying, "Oh, it's going to be Albany and Carolina in the championship game, and it's very hard to beat the team 4 times." Yeah, but you're going back to Carolina for that game. And
I mean, even then, you have more questions.
You have more issues right now than worrying about Carolina.
Right. I mean, look, Columbus. I mean,
Columbus.
Last week we talked. Will Daniel Smith show up and do the same thing again? And will the defense stay the same? Yes and yes. The defense is the best defense in the league, and luckily, their last matchup as we've seen back at that time, they were still trying to figure out what the heck they were doing offensively. And we talk final walkthrough on come here this Friday. This is going to be, I mean, if you're Tom Manaus and company over in Albany, you're like, okay, like we got better this week, but we really need to stop the bleeding at some point. And I mean, the credit on paper, if you're looking just records, technically they have one of the easiest schedules to end the year. You still got to get through this Columbus matchup, and San Antonio's upset you already. You know, Orlando, I bet, can give you a good fight.
Yeah,
it's not going to be easy. You got
it's not going to be easy. But let's just say if they go play, if Columbus stays on fire and beats Albany this weekend, that's 4 straight losses for Albany. And then you go back to San Antonio. And knowing San Antonio, what happens if San Antonio pulls off an upset this weekend too? All of a sudden, you go from defending champions, publicizing to everybody that you are the defending champions, to, oh my God, can we even make the 4 seed? It's Tom Manaus is a good coach. They have a great organization there, but sometimes superstar organizations do not win championships. Look at the NBA. We saw some great big threes. We saw some great NBA teams like the LA Lakers back in the 2000s that had Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and I think it was Nash. I think was on that team too. They never made it. They made the NBA Finals and got swept. I mean, you can get to the dance, but will you win? You look at, like, you see narrative from non-Albany fans. They're signing the best player, but they're just signing best players, but not a player that fits their system. They're going to play a team this weekend in Columbus that's Jason Gibson style. Like we mentioned earlier a couple of weeks ago, I was like, man, Jason, the injuries, the frustration to find somebody. And we know it's not Gibson. It's not the issue in Columbus. We know that. Now that he's gotten the quarterback, his defense is still there. You look at goes like, I don't know. Columbus goes up there and beats Albany. Albany's in a lot of hurt and trouble. And they go from, yes, we're going to definitely be a guaranteed 2 seed to, can we hold on to at least a 3 and 4? And even though the schedule may look light to Albany, they can't overlook. I think they overlooked San Antonio a couple of weeks ago when they lost to Carolina. And go, we're looking forward to that Carolina game, and San Antonio got them.
I think you predicted that right too, honestly.
And I said that's a trap game. I preached on this show. I preached on the boards. It's like San Antonio better not overlook San Antonio. That is a classic trap game, like in college football. That trap game between two ranked opponents, and they walked through San Antonio and lost. And it's lingered now a couple of weeks now. And it's not when you start pointing the finger at the coaching staff or the players. It's find something that works for you guys. Teams are finding how to beat you. Why is Darius Prince getting 8 touchdowns a game? It's because they're allowing Darius Prince to score 8 touchdowns. They're not letting anyone else beat them. And that's how Albany is losing games. Carolina did that. San Antonio did that. Carolina did that again. And I guarantee you, Jason Gibson, who is a loyal listener to the show, knows, let Darius Prince eat. Control everyone else, and you'll beat Albany. That has been the game plan against Albany. And I've seen that against Carolina this past week. They were letting Darius Prince do his thing. They were not making Dwayne Hollis beat them. They're not making Dwayne Hollis beat them. They're not going to make Wade beat him, Wade beat him, and dang it, I forgot the homeboy from Philly.
Washa.
There we go. They were making them beat them. Let Darius do their thing. Mm-hmm. Let him do his thing and control everyone else. And that's what Carolina did. That's what San Antonio did. And Manaus needs to think of something, how to mix up that offense. If not, Columbus is going to go in there with that same game plan and go, okay, we're going to let Darius Prince have his thing. We're not going to let anyone else beat us. And they're going to come out of Albany with a win.
This is another one of those matchups too. I think about, it came down to a field goal, and you really wonder, like, field position wise too, it doesn't help if you're trying to go for a deuce, you can't line up the ball. And I know the white kicking ball, the white ball, the deuce ball has not been great for that. But Derek Vodka has not done it since he stepped in for Mark Orozco. It's hard to replace someone like that. And that's just something, I mean, that was another thing that stuck out against Carolina. Carolina, almost every possession got to start from the 20.
Yeah, they're
because of
kicking it.
because
Yeah,
it was
Vaca was kicking it out.
almost.
Yeah.
If I had to take just off my own recollection of my viewing of the game, I am fairly certain almost every one of those kicks went out of bounds to the side. None of them stayed in play.
Yeah.
None of them got to the back wall. Almost all of them were souvenirs, which you don't want to see whatsoever. At least show you can get to the back wall. And I don't, whether it's the ball or not, I don't think it's the ball, by the way.
Mhm.
It's not working. That's an element special teams wise. You got to have someone that's a little more efficient. I don't know if that's another thing they look at. I mean, they still can sign players. There's still time, to work things out. But I mean, special teams helps. It's not the main issue.
Yeah.
But it's something. It's hurt their season right now. It's something you got to work around.
Yeah, for Albany to be positive about this, you lost to Carolina. 3 of your losses are to Carolina, 1's to San Antonio, and all your other wins are against everyone else in the league. So that benefits you. The problem is you get those teams again besides Jacksonville, and I guarantee there's a lot of Jackson Shark fans out there that want a piece of Albany again, because I guarantee you right now this Jacksonville team, different iteration, a little bit better than the one they played a couple from the first 2 weeks of the season. But I just look at Manas and I look at that coaching staff, and I do they need to make adjustments. And Columbus is not that team Columbus is not going to be that get right game. It's like, we need to get right
It's
game.
going to be hard.
Columbus is not that team. And it's almost, I'm not going to make a bold statement. I'm going to just say it's a must win for Albany if they want to be a 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
The 1 seed, basically, it's out of reach for you. If you tied Carolina, no matter what, your 0-3 gets them, they're going to have the 1 seed, unless Carolina epic falls here in the next couple of weeks. This is a big game against Columbus. If you beat Columbus, you're 2-0 against Columbus. You have the tiebreaker with them. But if Columbus beats you, you're 1-1. They have a better record. They get another game on you. They'll be up on like 2 games on you. And I think right now, based on the score differential, I think it's very close. I need to get check on that. But it's crucial for Albany if they want to be that team that gets that 2 seed. But they also, like I mentioned before, every team in the league has a path to the playoffs. Only one team needs to do an epic fail to miss, and that's Carolina. But for Albany, there's a path to make it. There's also a path to miss it. And me and you wouldn't have said that 3 weeks ago. And this is crucial. It's home, which is good. But last time they were home, they lost at home. So Albany needs to find a way. This is a pivotal week for Albany. And for Jason Gibson, that hasn't won in Albany yet, hasn't beaten Albany yet, you guarantee you Gibson and the Columbus Lions they're chomping at the bit to get the first win against Albany.
Well, remember what Coach Gibson said when we've talked to him. It ain't a rivalry yet. We haven't gotten that win.
Yeah.
And to make that official is what I'm looking at. That might happen, and it could possibly happen. And this is just, I think it's a perfect lead in to cap off, just really Columbus's resurgence these last 2 weeks. I know we also talked about
left.
Yeah, I know we also talked about how that first half ended and everything like that. But I mean, as we've said, this is the best defense in the National Arena League for a reason. Holding teams down to 33 points is a good feat, especially for a Sharks team that has come on and said, our philosophy is we just outrun you. We just choose to outrun you. You have to keep up with us. Columbus basically said, okay, we're going to just slow the pace down. You're going to play at our level, and we're going to beat you that way. And that's kind of what, like I said, call or not, that's really what they did. That is the entire philosophy of what they did. They brought them down to the level they wanted. They controlled the pace on the turf. They were able to offensively get most of what they wanted accomplished. And, Daniel Smith was able to find who he wanted. Townsend has become more and more versatile weapon. He's become their number 1 weapon at this point in the season. Right now, I mean, he's been a stud throughout the year. Kenny Starks, right now he's contributing even more so in the Ironman since last week. Running capability. He's a ferocious guy going around the edge to get sacks. Dude, as we've been described about him, he has a motor. That's just him. That is his philosophy. He's 100% every play. There's never a play off, and it shows. Guy gets back there. Guy's a disruptor. And one thing that they did an excellent job with, something when you play Arvell Nelson, you got to do this. This is the least amount of times I've seen Arvell get a deep run down the field, escape the pocket, use his legs. He had a few moments he got some short yardage, but they did an excellent job in a game plan in surrounding Nelson, keep him in the pocket, and essentially just saying, you got to beat us throwing, and we'll give you maybe dink and dunks every now and then, or at least that's the thing. You're going to methodically move down the field, not too many lobs, 20 plus yarders going to the end zone.
Yeah.
And he didn't get too many where he was kind of an open runner. They kept it all contained. That is a great feat for a QB like Arvell Nelson is, for the way he likes to play his style of offense. That's how you win games against him. They did the exact game plan needed. Now, Naquan Murray still had his own game, as you saw. Now, I mean, Devin Wilson's not there, so you have to have someone step up. Murray's been that guy. You very well know that, Jim. And he still had his day. But I'll tell you, they did all the right things to say, we can't beat you fully, but we're going to slow down your best weapon. That's your QB. We did enough to slow that element of the game down. And sure enough, they took advantage of the one thing we made a point of last week. The one slip up comes every game.
Yeah,
it
who jinxed
actually
that?
came on a pick six. Darrell Green took one to the house and basically put it on ice a little bit at that point.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for the jinx, by the way.
I know. It is definitely my fault. I'll take all credits on that one.
Next time you say something like that, make it as bold statement, so you get people that get mad at you, like I make a bold statement about Albany getting swept. Overall, besides the happened first half, Jacksonville, got out of the gate sluggish. Columbus capitalized. But one thing I noticed about this is one thing. This is what's basically making me very impressed about Arvell Nelson, is that he is single-handedly carrying the Sharks now. And he made that one mistake that was the determining factor, the final outcome of the game. If he didn't throw that interception, I guarantee you Jacksonville scores and Jacksonville wins the game. Because Columbus wasn't – that second half, they weren't slowing down Jacksonville. Naquan Murray was beating him. Rob Jones was torching him. Arvell Nelson – I almost said Mike Norvell. He's a coach of Florida State Seminoles. Arvell Nelson was tearing apart Columbus's defense in the second half. They had no answers against them until that final possession. This game was a mixture of ups and downs. Like, Columbus got the early deuce to get off the game, got a turnover, scored a touchdown, got up 2 scores. Jacksonville fought back, should have regained the lead at halftime, but we already talked about that. But the second half, Jacksonville kept fighting, and Columbus kept answering. When we have a source in the league says that he still believes that Jacksonville and Columbus are the 2 best teams in the league right now. And I think he's just doing that to make us feel happy about the show. But right now, Columbus, you've been on Columbus' defense from day one, how they were the best defense in the league. And they basically carried that over from last year's best defense in the league. And I'm still kind of think that Carolina still has a good argument in that discussion. But overall in this game, yes, Jacksonville lost. But the final score does not tell you how close this game was. Columbus won by 10, but clearly it was that Arvell Nelson's interception that was the determining factor of the game. And overall, when you look at this game and look at the 3 matches to these 2 teams, 1 possession games in both meetings in Columbus and a complete blowout in Jacksonville for the 1 game in Jax. It's a true rivalry between these 2 teams. And I made a statement in their chat that I don't think this is the last time Columbus and Jacksonville will play each other this season. That's either in the playoff game or in the NL championship game. I still think they're going to have a 4th and final matchup of the year. But overall, this game was the determining factor where these teams have gone. You look at week 1's teams, I think Jacksonville destroys themselves in week 1. And I think Columbus's team destroys themselves in week 1. These are 2 better iteration of the teams. One thing I'm impressed about Jacksonville is big man Naquan Murray stepping up with Devin Wilson being out. Naquan was there. Arvell was getting him the ball, and they were moving the ball down the field. You look on this side of Columbus, of course, Starks is impressive. And they kind of jumped off a little early in a couple plays, but not too much to get the flag thrown. But the keys to this game started off early. Columbus's special teams was getting deuces. Jacksonville was doing what Albany was doing, just kick the ball out of bounds down and trying to play position. And Columbus's average starting position was like at the 20-yard line. But overall, out of the 3 games this weekend, Jacksonville, Columbus lived up to the bill. You knew it was going to be an ugly game. You knew one fan base was going to be ticked off at the end. One fan base was either going to talk about penalties. Another fan base was going to talk about, the bald-headed guy by the club seats distracting the field goal kickers. I have to keep saying that to Casey because he's right there. but anyways, overall, for Columbus is a win. They're currently right now based on standings, number 2 in the NAL. Crucial matchup this week in Albany. They can solidify them as a top 2 team right now and maybe pull some separation, but they have a crucial tiebreaker over Jacksonville. If Jackson finds a way to capitalize on the second half of the season with 3 winnable games for Jacksonville, with Carolina coming in here with the other 2, it's going to be an intriguing game. But what really got me is that Jason Gibson and the Columbus Lions, that mentality, his game plan, his style. Columbus is playing Columbus football. It took him to week 9 to finally get there, but this is a Columbus team that can rival the team from last season. They have a quarterback. They have a team. They have a receiving core that's very underrated, doesn't get enough recognition, and they got a defense that just smothers you and shuts you down. So for Columbus fans out there, that's like, oh, Jim doesn't talk positive about the Columbus Lions. Well, yeah, I had to. You guys deserve it. You tip hat, rivalry. Touche. See you another day. You guys won the season series against the Sharks. And hopefully we get, like I mentioned, I think this is not the last time we see these 2 teams face each other in the 2022 season. But right now, Columbus gets the edge. And right now, they're on a 3-game winning streak, I think. 3-game? 2-game winning streak.
It's 2-game.
2-game. Almost gave you my prediction of this week coming up. A 2-game winning streak in 2 impressive games. They shut down Carolina, and they outlasted, like you said, you have to outlast Jacksonville. You can't really shut them down. They outlasted Jacksonville. Overall, Townsend, beast. He returned 1 back to get in the game. I'm like, don't kick it to the dude. That's why they started kicking it. Like, just don't kick it to him.
Him and Rakeem Cato or Hendrickson. Yeah. It was like the 3 guys. It's like, if you are going to kick this one, you're going to go for the deuce. You better get it back past the back wall, because if that thing's returned, they are going to burn you. It's almost guaranteed you're going to get at least 20 yards that they'll burn you for.
And also, Columbus kept it away from Naquan when he was back there. And Rob Jones, they didn't want them to do it too. So it's unique. Even though we're not getting deuces as a high frequency like we usually did last year, the strategy of keeping the ball away from some of these kick returners is just as entertaining as the overall game itself. But for you Columbus fans, enjoy. You get the win. You're back in second place in the league. And, hey, you got a winning record.
Feels good. It's got to feel good. Feels good.
And my Sharks are below 500 again for the second time this season.
But look, it's nice to see. It's a little more thrilling this way. Every week has a lot more implication. Yes, it's parity. There's a lot more parity this year. I know Carolina obviously separated themselves a little bit more this past week, but like the 3 playoff seeds are kind of up in the air right now. And we're at the back half of the season now. Parity. It's glorious.
Yeah. We are entering week 10 this weekend. And we're entering the season that I like to call playoff scenarios.
Yeah.
We have one team that has that scenario this week, and that is the Carolina Cobras. They win this week against the San Antonio Gunslinger with an Orlando loss. They clinch themselves one of those 4 seeds in this year's postseason. So, the season seems like it just started, but it's a lot longer than last year. But overall, week 9 has had its ups and it's had its downs. We mentioned earlier in the show, but we just want to tell you, the fans here, for your number 1 source for NAL news, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at InWallsPod. Follow us on YouTube at Inside the Walls Podcast. YouTube. We're 14 away till we get the InWalls Pod on our YouTube. So close, yeah. And of course, like, subscribe, and click the bell because it builds morale. Because of one of our other colleagues. and you're in the other league. That's playoff time, right?
Yes. First,
That's
if you care about the United States Football League, this Saturday, baby, it's the weekend of the playoffs, and then July 4th weekend's championship. I'm not going to go into full show mode for that,
but still, there's playoff
I'm
football
saying.
being played this weekend.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
got options, people. You
yeah.
got some good options. I'm telling
And
you.
also we got a 3-game slate in the NAL coming up this weekend. We'll cover that on Friday on the final walkthrough. Turf Talk, TBA might do a player, might do our 1-year anniversary show. We got to figure out things, do scheduling purposes. But there will be a show dropping Thursday. We had a lot of fans out there saying, "Where's my Thursday show?" Well, it is Thursday. Why? We kind of had scheduling issues. So they wanted their Turf Talk. We forgot it. And of course, we'll be here on Friday night. Remember, again, follow us on NWALS Pod. Also, NationalArenaLeague.com. We're halfway down the page on the right side. It's NationalArenaLeague.com/videos. I'm Jim Renier. I'm located here in Jackson, Florida. That is Zach Collins, 900 miles north in Indianapolis. But remember, before we end this show,
Yep.
Hello, YouTubers. I know it's so late, but remember one thing.
Watch where you are at all times on defense. If you are that Mac linebacker, Jack linebacker. See, now Commissioner Sicker is going to get a hold of me again. It's going to be the same thing that we talked about in our last interview. It's mixing my words. I'm too excited, Jim. This is what's happening. You know it. You folks know it. Don't be a jack out of the box. It's that simple. Keep a level head, know your surroundings, and keep your eyes on the prize, just like a jack linebacker does.
Yeah. And if you were my jack linebacker, you'd be giving the offense free first downs. I'd be really ticked at you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What are you doing?
Come on, dude.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the episode of Wednesday Rewind. We'll see you tomorrow for Turf Talk.